As I stepped on my flight, the flight attendant gave me a strange list of rules. The airport buzzed with the usual chaos of Friday evening departures. I'd been standing in the security line for 40 minutes, watching businessmen check their watches and families wrangle screaming toddlers. My flight to Seattle was supposed to be routine. 6 hours, a connecting flight, then home for my sister's wedding. I hadn't slept properly in 3 days, my eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets until 2 in the morning. The promotion at work had come with a price. Everything had a price. I shuffled toward gate B17 with my carry-on dragging behind me, the wheels squeaking against the polished floor. My phone buzzed. Another email from my boss. I ignored it. The gate area was surprisingly empty for such a large flight. Maybe a dozen people scattered across the rows of seats, most of them absorbed in their phones or laptops. Nobody talked. Nobody made eye contact. I found that strange, but I was too exhausted to care. When they called for boarding, I was among the first to line up. The flight attendant at the gate was young, maybe mid-20s, with auburn hair pulled back so tightly it stretched her skin. Her smile seemed painted on, frozen in place like a mannequin's expression. She wore the standard uniform, navy blue with a red scarf, but something about her seemed off. Her movements were too precise, too calculated. When I handed her my boarding pass, her fingers felt ice cold as they brushed against mine. She scanned the pass without looking at the screen, her eyes locked on my face the entire time. "Mr. Garrett," she said, though I hadn't introduced myself. "You're in seat 14C, middle of the cabin." Her smile widened impossibly further. "I have something for you." She reached into a leather folder and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not the usual safety card or advertisement. This was different. Cream-colored paper, the kind you'd use for a formal letter, folded precisely into thirds. "What is this?" I asked, taking the paper. She leaned closer, her breath cold against my ear. "Read it once you're seated. Don't show anyone else. Don't ask questions. Just follow the rules." Before I could respond, she straightened up and called for the next passenger, her voice suddenly bright and cheerful. I stood there for a moment, confused, before another attendant ushered me down the jet bridge. The paper felt heavier than it should have, like it contained more than just ink and pulp. My heart rate picked up. Something primitive in my brain was screaming at me to turn around, to walk away, to miss this flight. But logic prevailed. I'd paid for this ticket. My sister was getting married. I couldn't let some weird flight attendant spook me with a piece of paper. The plane's interior was dimly lit, the overhead lights casting yellow shadows across empty seats. The cabin smelled wrong. Not the usual mix of recycled air and cleaning chemicals, but something organic, metallic, like blood and copper. I found seat 14C and shoved my bag into the overhead compartment. The seats around me were empty. The entire middle section seemed deserted, actually, which was bizarre for a flight that was supposedly fully booked according to the gate agent. I settled into the middle seat, the armrests digging into my sides, and pulled out the folded paper. My hands were shaking. Why were my hands shaking? I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was rushed, almost frantic, written in black ink that had bled through the paper in some places. Whoever wrote this had pressed down hard, desperate to make sure every word was legible. The title at the top made my stomach drop. Survival Rules for Flight 237. Read carefully. Your life depends on it. I almost laughed. This had to be a prank. Some elaborate joke for a YouTube channel or a hidden camera show. I glanced around for cameras but saw nothing. The other passengers were boarding now, filing past me without a glance. Rule 1. Check the time on your phone immediately after reading this. All subsequent rules are time-based. You have approximately 4 hours until landing. Do not deviate from the timeline. I checked my phone out of curiosity. 9:47 p.m. The departure time matched my ticket. Fine. I'd play along. Rule 2. During the first hour, 9:47 p.m. to 10:47 p.m., do not speak to anyone. If someone tries to engage you in conversation, ignore them completely. Do not make eye contact. Do not acknowledge their presence. If you speak during this hour, they will know you're human. I felt my pulse quicken. They will know you're human? What kind of prank was this? I continued reading, my eyes scanning faster now. Rule 3. During the second hour, 10:47 p.m. to 11:47 p.m., you may speak if necessary, but if anyone mentions the window or asks you to look outside, refuse. Do not look out the window under any circumstances during this hour. What you see will break your mind. Rule 4. If you hear a baby crying anywhere in the cabin, immediately go to the nearest bathroom and lock yourself inside. Count to 100. Do not come out until the crying stops, no matter what sounds you hear. Do not open the door for anyone, even if they claim to be crew. The baby is not real. Rule 5. If your entertainment screen goes black and begins showing your reflection, look away immediately. Do not stare at it. Do not try to interact with it. Your reflection will start moving independently after 17 seconds. If you watch it for more than 30 seconds, it will crawl out. Rule 6. During the third hour, 11:47 p.m. to 12:47 a.m., the captain will make an announcement. Listen carefully and follow the instructions exactly as stated. Do not interpret. Do not improvise. The captain is the only crew member who is still human. Rule 7. During the 4th hour, 12:47 a.m. to 1:47 a.m., do not remain in your seat. Find somewhere else to be. The overhead compartments are safe. The galley area at the back is safe. Your seat is not. Rule 8. After the 4th hour, if you have survived, you will need to evade the passenger. You will recognize the passenger when you see them. They will be wearing your face. Do not let them touch you. Do not let them speak your name 3 times. If they do, you become them, and they become you. Rule 9. When the captain announces landing, immediately move to the emergency exit door over the wing, door 3L. Do not wait for others. Do not help anyone. Open the door as soon as the announcement ends. You will see a black void outside. Jump into it without hesitation. This is the only way to truly land. Rule 10. If you fail to follow any of these rules, you will land with everyone else. You will walk off the plane. You will go home. You will live your life, but you will not be you anymore. They will be wearing your skin, living your life, and you will be trapped inside, screaming forever, watching through eyes that no longer belong to you. Good luck. Signed, the previous passenger of seat 14C. I read the list 3 times, my hands trembling so badly the paper rattled. This was insane, completely insane. But something about the handwriting, the desperate way the words had been carved into the paper, made my chest tighten with fear. A man suddenly appeared next to me, standing in the aisle. I hadn't heard him approach. He was tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a gray business suit that looked expensive but ill-fitting, like he'd borrowed it from someone else's body. His face was average, forgettable, the kind of face you'd struggle to describe 5 minutes after seeing it. Brown hair, maybe? Blue eyes? No, brown. Wait, were they green? I couldn't focus. Excuse me, he said, his voice flat and emotionless. I believe you're in my seat. I glanced at my boarding pass, then at the seat number above. 14C. No, this is my seat, I said, then immediately regretted it. Rule 2. Don't speak during the 1st hour. I checked my phone. 9:51 p.m. 4 minutes into the 1st hour, and I'd already broken the 1st rule. The man's face remained expressionless, but something shifted in his eyes. A flicker of recognition, of satisfaction. He smiled, and when he did, I saw that his teeth were too white, too perfect, too numerous. Humans have 32 teeth. This man had at least 40. My mistake, he said, his voice now carrying a strange harmonic quality, like 2 people speaking in unison. I must have misread my ticket. He moved past me to seat 14D, his body moving in a way that seemed wrong. Too fluid, too smooth, like he had no joints, no bones, just something liquid inside a human-shaped bag. I pressed myself against the back of my seat, trying to create as much distance as possible. He settled into his seat without looking at me, pulling out a laptop from a briefcase I hadn't noticed before. The laptop was normal, or appeared to be, but when he opened it, I caught a glimpse of the screen. It displayed a single image, a photograph of me. Not just any photograph. It was me from this morning. I recognized the shirt I'd been wearing, the coffee shop in the background. I'd stopped at a Starbucks on my way to the airport. Who had taken this photo? How did this man have it? My heart hammered against my ribs. I wanted to say something, to demand answers, but Rule 2 echoed in my mind. Do not speak during the 1st hour. If you speak, they will know you're human. The man began typing on his laptop, his fingers moving across the keyboard in patterns that made no sense. The keys themselves were wrong. Instead of letters and numbers, they were marked with symbols I'd never seen before. Geometric shapes that hurt to look at, that seemed to shift and writhe when I tried to focus on them. I tore my eyes away and stared straight ahead. The plane was nearly full now. Passengers filled almost every seat, yet the cabin remained eerily quiet. No conversations, no rustling of bags, no crying children, just silence, broken only by the occasional footstep and the hum of the ventilation system. A flight attendant walked past, the same woman from the gate. She glanced at me, her painted smile still frozen in place, and winked. The gesture was wrong, too exaggerated, her eyelids staying closed for a full 3 seconds before snapping back open. I gripped the armrests and tried to slow my breathing. This was just anxiety, lack of sleep, stress from work. I was hallucinating, creating patterns where none existed. The paper in my lap was probably just some elaborate prank by the airline, a Halloween promotion or something. It was October, after all. People did weird things in October. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Reynolds. We'll be departing shortly for Seattle with an estimated flight time of 5 hours and 43 minutes. Weather looks clear. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight. The voice sounded normal. Human. That was good. Rule 6 said the captain was the only crew member who was still human. Still human. The implication made my skin crawl. The plane began to move, backing away from the gate. I'd flown dozens of times before, but this time felt different. The taxi to the runway seemed to take forever. The plane crawling along the tarmac like it was reluctant to take off. Through the window across the aisle, I could see the airport lights. Other planes lined up, everything normal, everything fine. Then we turned onto the runway. and the engines roared to life. The acceleration pushed me back into my seat as we hurtled down the runway, faster and faster, until that moment of weightlessness when the wheels left the ground and we were airborne. My stomach lurched, not from the motion, but from the certainty that I'd just made a terrible mistake. I should have gotten off this plane. I should have listened to my instincts. The man next to me closed his laptop and turned to face me. His neck rotated a full 180 degrees, his body still facing forward while his head faced me completely. "You read the rules," he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't respond. Couldn't respond. My throat had closed up completely. Rule 2, don't speak. Don't acknowledge them. His smile widened further, stretching beyond the boundaries of his face, his lips reaching almost to his ears. "That's good. You're a fast learner. The last person in your seat, they spoke immediately, kept speaking, asking questions, demanding answers." He paused, his head tilting at an angle that would have broken a human neck. "They didn't make it past the first hour." I stared straight ahead, my fingernails digging into the armrests so hard I felt them crack. The man's head slowly rotated back to face forward, the movement accompanied by a wet, grinding sound. He reopened his laptop and resumed typing. I checked my phone. 10:03 p.m. 44 minutes left in the first hour. I could do this. I just had to stay quiet, follow the rules, and everything would be fine. But what if the rules themselves were part of the trap? What if following them was exactly what they wanted? A woman across the aisle caught my eye. She was maybe 60, gray hair cut short, wearing a floral dress that looked decades old. She was staring at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. When our eyes met, she smiled and waved. I looked away quickly. Don't acknowledge them. Don't make eye contact. But in my peripheral vision, I could see her still watching me, her head perfectly still, her hand frozen mid-wave. Minutes crawled by. The cabin remained silent, except for the drone of the engines. I tried to distract myself by reading the safety card in the seat pocket, but the illustrations were wrong. The figures depicted weren't quite human. Their proportions were off, their limbs too long, their heads too large. One illustration showed the emergency exit procedure, and the figure opening the door was clearly screaming, their mouth drawn as a black circle that took up half their face. I shoved the card back into the pocket. My phone showed 10:19 p.m., 28 minutes left. The man next to me suddenly spoke again, his voice now coming from directly behind me, even though he hadn't moved. "Do you know why they gave you the rules?" I bit my tongue, fighting the urge to respond. "It's not mercy," the voice continued, now coming from above me, from the overhead compartment. "It's entertainment. They want to see if you can follow simple instructions. Most can't. The fear makes them irrational, makes them break the rules." I squeezed my eyes shut. This wasn't real. None of this was real. "The record is 12 minutes, the voice said, now coming from my own mouth somehow, speaking with my voice even though my jaw was clenched shut. "A businessman, corporate type like you. He made it 12 minutes before he started screaming. Then we all knew, and we were so hungry." The voice stopped. When I opened my eyes, the man was sitting normally again, typing on his laptop, apparently ignoring me. But on his screen, I could see the image had changed. Now it showed me sitting in my seat, eyes wide with terror. The image was live. I was watching myself on his screen in real time. He was recording me, but I didn't see a camera anywhere. I checked my phone with shaking hands. 10:31 p.m., 16 minutes left. I could make it. I had to make it. A flight attendant appeared in the aisle, pushing a beverage cart. She was different from the one at the gate. This one was older, maybe 50, with bleached blonde hair and too much makeup. Her smile was just as wrong, though. Too wide, too constant. She stopped next to my row. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked, her voice sickeningly sweet. I shook my head without making eye contact. "Are you sure? You look thirsty? Your throat must be so dry. Don't you want to speak? Don't you want to ask me what's happening?" I kept shaking my head, staring at the seat in front of me. The flight attendant leaned closer, her breath smelling like formaldehyde and rotting flowers. "Just one word. That's all it takes. Just say water and I'll give you a drink. Just say help and I'll save you." My throat was actually dry now, my tongue feeling like sandpaper, but I pressed my lips together and refused to open them. The flight attendant straightened up, her smile finally fading. "Shame," she said, moving the cart forward. "I always enjoy the ones who talk." She continued down the aisle, offering drinks to other passengers. I noticed that nobody else was refusing. They all spoke to her, ordered drinks, engaged in brief conversations. Did that mean they weren't human? Or was I the only one who'd received the rules? I checked my phone again. 10:44 p.m., 3 minutes left. Almost through the first hour. I'd made it. I'd actually made it. The relief that washed over me was so intense I almost started crying. But then the baby started screaming. The sound came from somewhere behind me, a high-pitched wail that set my teeth on edge. But something about the cry was wrong. It was too loud, too perfect, like a recording played at maximum volume. Rule 4 flashed through my mind. If you hear a baby crying, immediately go to the nearest bathroom and lock yourself inside. Count to 100. Don't come out until the crying stops. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stood up, my legs shaking. The bathroom was at the front of the cabin, about 6 rows ahead. The crying intensified as I moved, following me, getting closer even though I was walking away from the source. Other passengers turned to look at me, all of them. In perfect synchronization, every head in the cabin rotated to track my movement. Their faces were blank, empty, like masks with nothing behind them. I reached the bathroom and grabbed the handle. Locked. Someone was inside. The crying was right behind me now, so close I could feel hot breath on my neck. I pounded on the bathroom door, forgetting the rules, forgetting everything except the desperate need to get away from that sound. The door opened. The man inside was naked, his skin gray and mottled. He smiled at me with too many teeth and stepped aside. I threw myself into the tiny bathroom and slammed the door, locking it with trembling fingers. The crying stopped instantly. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. I leaned against the sink, gasping for breath, my heart racing so fast I thought it might explode. Then I remembered. Count to 100. I started counting in my head, forcing myself to breathe slowly. 1, 2, 3. Something scratched at the door, long scraping sounds like fingernails on metal. 4, 5, 6. A voice spoke from the other side. My voice. Let me in. I'm you. I've always been you. You've been me this whole time. Don't you understand? There is no difference. There has never been a difference. 7, 8, 9. The scratching intensified, joined by what sounded like chewing. Something was eating the door. 10, 11, 12. I could see the metal beginning to buckle, to bend inward. Whatever was outside was incredibly strong. 20, 21, 22. The lights in the bathroom flickered. In the mirror, my reflection moved independently, its mouth opening and closing, speaking words I couldn't hear. I looked away, remembering Rule 5. Don't stare at your reflection. 30, 31, 32. The door suddenly stopped moving. The scratching ceased. Everything went quiet again. I kept counting, not daring to stop. 50, 51, 52. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, breaking my count, and saw the time. 10:47 p.m. Exactly. A text message appeared from an unknown number. First hour complete. You may exit the bathroom. Second hour has begun. Remember Rule 3. I unlocked the door and peered out cautiously. The cabin looked normal. Passengers were reading, sleeping, watching their entertainment screens. The flight attendants were nowhere to be seen. I made my way back to my seat, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The man in 14D was gone. His laptop was gone. The seat looked like it had never been occupied. I sat down and buckled my seatbelt, my hands still shaking. I'd survived the first hour, but 3 more remained, each with its own dangers, its own rules to follow. Rule 3 for the second hour was clear. Don't look out the window if anyone mentions it. I glanced across the aisle at the window seats. The shades were all down, every single one. That seemed significant. A young woman suddenly appeared in the aisle next to me. She was maybe 25, wearing jeans and a university sweatshirt. She looked completely normal, more normal than anyone else on the plane. "Excuse me," she said, her voice nervous and very human. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I think I'm going crazy. Have you noticed anything weird about this flight?" I hesitated. The second hour had started. I could speak now. But was this a test? Like what? I asked carefully. Her eyes filled with tears. The people, the crew, something's wrong with them. I've been watching and they don't blink. None of them blink. Not once. She was right. I hadn't noticed it consciously, but now that she mentioned it, I realized I hadn't seen anyone blink since boarding. And the windows, she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. Have you looked outside? Have you seen what's out there? Rule 3 screamed in my mind. If anyone mentions the window, don't look outside under any circumstances. No, I said firmly. I haven't looked and I'm not going to. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You have to look. You have to see it. You have to understand what's happening. We're not flying to Seattle. We're not flying anywhere. I'm not looking, I interrupted, pulling my arm away. And neither should you. Her face changed. The fear drained away, replaced by something cold and calculated. You read the rules, she said, her voice no longer nervous. That's disappointing. I was hoping you'd look. They always look when someone asks them to. The curiosity is too strong. She turned and walked away, her gait changing mid-step from human to something else, something that moved like a spider trying to imitate a person walking. I checked my phone. 10:52 p.m., 55 minutes left in the second hour. An older man across the aisle suddenly stood up and reached for the window shade. Don't! I shouted before I could stop myself. He paused, his hand inches from the shade, and looked at me. Why not? He asked. I want to see how high we are. Just don't. Please. He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled. You're afraid of what's out there. That means you know. That means you're aware. He yanked the shade up in one quick motion. I looked away immediately, staring at the seat in front of me, but I caught a glimpse. Just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Outside the window wasn't sky, wasn't clouds. It was eyes. Thousands of eyes. Millions of them. stretching infinitely in all directions, all of them open, all of them staring in at us. The image burned into my brain. I squeezed my eyes shut, but I could still see them, still feel them watching. The older man started laughing. It began as a normal laugh, but quickly transformed into something else, a high-pitched keening that wasn't remotely human. Other passengers joined in, their laughter creating a discordant symphony that made my ears ring. I covered my ears and hunched forward, trying to block out the sound. It went on for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. When it finally stopped, I looked up cautiously. The man across the aisle was back in his seat. The window shade closed again. Everything appeared normal, but I knew I'd never forget what I'd seen. Never forget that we were flying through an ocean of watching eyes. My phone showed 11:03 p.m. 44 minutes left. I could make it. I had to make it. A flight attendant approached, the same one from earlier with the bleached blonde hair. She was pushing the beverage cart again, but this time I noticed something. The cart was full of drinks, but they were all the same. Identical glasses filled with dark red liquid that was too thick to be wine. "Would you like a drink?" she asked, stopping next to me. "No, thank you," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Are you sure? It's complimentary. Everyone gets one eventually." "I'm sure." She leaned down, bringing her face close to mine. "Do you know what it is? Do you know what we're serving?" I didn't respond. "It's condensed memory," she whispered. "Every thought you've ever had, every experience, every feeling, all compressed into liquid form. One sip, and you remember everything. Every version of yourself, every life you've lived, every reality you've existed in simultaneously." She straightened up. "But you're not ready for that yet, are you? You still think this is your first flight?" Before I could process that statement, she moved on down the aisle. My mind was reeling. Every life I've lived? Every reality? What did that mean? I checked my phone obsessively now, watching the minutes crawl by. 11:17 p.m. 30 minutes left. The cabin lights suddenly dimmed, shifting to a soft blue glow that made everyone look corpse-like. The entertainment screens flickered to life simultaneously, all showing the same thing. A video of the plane from outside, shot from impossible angles. The camera perspective moved around the aircraft, showing it suspended in that void of eyes, mechanical and fragile and completely alone. Then the camera zoomed in on the windows, moving from one to another, showing the passengers inside. Most were sleeping, their faces slack and empty. A few were awake, staring at their screens with expressions of absolute horror. The camera stopped at my window. At me. I was staring at myself on every screen in the cabin, watching my own face go pale as I realized what this meant. The video was live. Something was outside right now, filming. I looked at my entertainment screen. It was off, dark, showing nothing but my reflection. Then my reflection blinked. I hadn't blinked. Rule 5 crashed into my consciousness. If your entertainment screen goes black and shows your reflection, look away immediately. Your reflection will start moving independently after 17 seconds. If you watch for more than 30 seconds, it will crawl out. I'd been staring for maybe 10 seconds. I tore my eyes away and focused on the seat back instead, but I could see the screen in my peripheral vision. My reflection was moving now, tilting its head, raising its hand to press against the inside of the screen like someone trapped behind glass. I counted in my head. 19, 20, 21. A crackling sound came from the screen, like ice breaking. 25, 26, 27. I could see fingers beginning to push through the screen, the surface bulging outward like stretched membrane. 29, 30. I grabbed my phone and held it up, using the camera to check the screen without looking directly at it. The reflection was halfway out, its torso emerging from the screen, arms reaching forward. But at exactly 30 seconds, it froze. Then, like a video played in reverse, it was sucked back into the screen, which went completely dark. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Another rule followed successfully, but my nerves were shredded. How many more tests could I pass before I slipped up? I checked the time. 11:34 p.m. 13 minutes until the third hour. My body ached from tension. My throat was raw from holding back screams. I wanted nothing more than to curl up and close my eyes, to pretend this wasn't happening, but I couldn't. The moment I let my guard down would be the moment they got me. A child appeared in the aisle. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, wearing a white dress covered in red stains. She walked slowly down the aisle, her feet making no sound against the carpet. When she reached my row, she stopped and looked directly at me. "Are you my daddy?" she asked, her voice sweet and innocent. "No," I said firmly. "Will you help me find my daddy?" "No." Her face crumpled, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Please, I'm scared. I can't find him anywhere. Everyone here is wrong. Everyone here is pretending, but you're real. I can tell you're real. Please help me." Every instinct screamed at me to comfort this child, to help her. But I thought of Rule 4. The baby is not real. If a child could be fake, so could this girl. "I can't help you," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm sorry." She stared at me for a long moment, tears still flowing. Then she smiled, and her teeth were all black, rotted and broken. "You're smart," she said in a completely different voice, deep and masculine. "Smarter than most. That will make it so much sweeter when you finally break. She turned and walked away, her body shifting with each step, growing taller, more angular, until she didn't resemble a child at all anymore. I checked my phone with shaking hands. 11:47 p.m. The third hour was beginning. Rule 6. During the third hour, the captain will make an announcement. Listen carefully and follow the instructions exactly. Don't interpret. Don't improvise. I waited, every muscle in my body tense. The intercom crackled to life. Good evening, passengers. Captain Reynolds' voice, but something was different. He sounded strained, frightened. I need everyone to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. In exactly 3 minutes, the cabin pressure will drop. Do not put on the oxygen masks. I repeat, do not put on the oxygen masks. They are not filled with oxygen. A pause. Heavy breathing. When the pressure drops, stay in your seat. Do not move. Do not stand. Do not try to help others. Close your eyes and count to 100. If you open your eyes before you reach 100, you will see them in their true forms, and that sight will destroy your sanity. Another pause, longer this time. After you finish counting, the pressure will normalize. The person sitting next to you will have changed. Do not acknowledge this. Do not comment on it. Pretend everything is normal. This is critical. If you acknowledge the change, you will take their place, and they will take yours. The captain's voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what I was signing up for. I thought it was just a job. I thought... The intercom cut off with a sharp click. The cabin lights turned red. A warning alarm began to blare. I gripped my armrests and closed my eyes, beginning to count. 1, 2, 3. The pressure change was immediate and violent. My ears popped painfully. The air felt thin, too thin, like trying to breathe at the top of a mountain. 10, 11, 12. I heard the oxygen masks drop from the overhead compartments. The sound of plastic rattling against metal. 20, 21, 22. Someone screamed. A raw, primal sound of absolute terror, then another scream, and another. Soon the entire cabin was filled with screaming. 30, 31, 32. The screaming changed. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was pain, agony, the sound of people experiencing something beyond human comprehension. 40, 41, 42. Something heavy fell in the aisle next to me. I heard wet, tearing sounds, chewing. 50, 51, 52. The screaming stopped abruptly, replaced by a sound that was worse, whispering. Thousands of voices whispering in unison, saying words I couldn't understand in a language that predated human speech. 60, 61, 62. Something touched my hand, fingers, cold and slick, wrapping around mine. I kept my eyes closed, kept counting. 70, 71, 72. The fingers tightened, nails digging into my skin, drawing blood. But I didn't react, didn't open my eyes. 80, 81, 82. A voice whispered directly in my ear. Open your eyes, just a peek, just 1 second. Don't you want to know what's really happening? 90, 91, 92. We can end this. We can let you go. All you have to do is look. Just look. 98, 99, 100. I opened my eyes. The cabin was normal. Passengers in their seats. No blood, no bodies, no chaos. But the man sitting next to me in 14D was different. He was older now, maybe 60, with white hair and weathered skin. He wore different clothes, a polo shirt and khakis. He smiled at me pleasantly. Hell of a flight, huh? He said. I forced myself to smile back. Yeah, quite a ride. Name's Walter, from Michigan, heading to Seattle for my grandson's graduation. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak more than necessary. Walter was different from the thing that had been sitting there before. He seemed genuinely human, but the captain had warned us. The person next to you will have changed. Don't acknowledge it. I checked my phone. 11:52 p.m., 55 minutes left in the third hour, then the fourth hour. The rule for the fourth hour flashed through my mind. Do not remain in your seat. Find somewhere else to be. The overhead compartments are safe. The galley at the back is safe. Your seat is not. Walter pulled out a book and started reading. A Tom Clancy novel, dog-eared and worn. He seemed completely oblivious to everything that had happened. Was he real? Or was this another test? I decided it didn't matter. I couldn't trust anyone on this plane. The flight attendant with the bleached blonde hair walked past again. She looked different too. Younger somehow. Her skin smoother, her movements more fluid. She caught my eye and winked. Not the prolonged, wrong wink from before. This was quick, natural, almost flirtatious. But I knew better than to trust appearances. The cabin had returned to its previous state of quiet normalcy. Passengers read, slept, watched their screens. Everything seemed fine, but I knew what lurked beneath the surface. I'd seen glimpses of the truth, heard the screams, felt the cold fingers on my hand. This was a thin veneer over something ancient and hungry. My phone showed 12:14 a.m. The third hour was more than halfway done. So far, I'd followed the captain's instructions perfectly. I hadn't acknowledged Walter's change. I'd kept my eyes closed during the pressure drop, I was still alive, still myself, but the fourth hour loomed ahead, and with it, a new danger. I needed to plan. Where would I go when the fourth hour started? The overhead compartment seemed impossible. How could I fit in there? But the rule had said they were safe, so I had to trust it. The galley at the back was a better option. I could claim I needed to stretch my legs, needed to walk around. Flight attendants did it all the time. Nobody would question it. I glanced at Walter. He was engrossed in his book, occasionally turning a page. Everything about him seemed normal. Too normal. "Excuse me," he said suddenly, making me jump. "Do you have the time?" My watch stopped working. I checked my phone. 12:23. "Thanks. This has been the longest flight of my life. Feels like we've been in the air for days." He laughed, but there was something hollow about it. "I know what you mean," I said carefully. Walter leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Between you and me, I think something's wrong with this plane. The crew is acting strange. And did you notice during that pressure drop? The oxygen masks that fell were empty. Just empty plastic shells. I felt ice in my veins." He'd noticed. He was aware. "I didn't notice," I lied. "Maybe you're just tired. Long flights can make you imagine things." Walter studied my face for a long moment. "Maybe," he said finally, returning to his book. But I could see his hands shaking slightly as he held the pages. He was terrified. And unlike the others, his fear seemed genuine. I checked my phone again. 12:39 a.m. 8 minutes until the fourth hour. I needed to move soon. Find somewhere safe. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stood up, my legs stiff from sitting. "Bathroom," I muttered to Walter, though he didn't ask. I walked down the aisle toward the back of the plane, my heart pounding. Other passengers watched me pass. Their eyes followed my movement with predatory interest. The galley area was at the very back, past the rear bathrooms. 2 flight attendants stood there, preparing what looked like meal trays. They looked up as I approached. "Can I help you?" one asked. She was young, Asian, with short black hair and a nameplate that read, Kenji. "Just needed to stretch my legs," I said. "Long flight." "Of course. But you should return to your seat. We'll be serving meals soon." I checked my phone. 12:46 a.m. 1 minute until the fourth hour. "Actually, I'm feeling a bit airsick. Would it be okay if I stood here for a few minutes, just until my stomach settles?" The 2 attendants exchanged glances. Something passed between them, an unspoken communication. "I suppose that would be fine," Kenji said slowly. "But stay out of the way." I positioned myself in the corner of the galley, trying to appear casual. The attendants returned to their work, occasionally glancing at me with expressions I couldn't read. My phone showed 12:47 a.m. The fourth hour had begun. I was safe here, according to the rules. But for how long? What was going to happen to my seat? What would happen to Walter? Suddenly, a sound echoed through the cabin. A scream, high-pitched and terrified, coming from somewhere in the middle section, right where I'd been sitting. The attendants didn't react. They continued preparing trays as if nothing had happened. The scream cut off abruptly, replaced by a wet, crunching sound that made my stomach turn. More sounds followed. Breaking, tearing, the unmistakable noise of something being consumed. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. Through the galley curtain, I could see into the cabin. Passengers were turning in their seats, looking toward the source of the sound. But their expressions were wrong. They weren't horrified or concerned. They were excited, hungry. One by one, they unbuckled their seatbelts and stood up. Dozens of them, all moving in perfect synchronization. They filed into the aisles and began walking toward the middle section, toward row 14, toward my empty seat. I watched in horror as they crowded around it. I couldn't see what they were doing, but I could hear it. Slurping, chewing, satisfied moans. They were feeding on something, or someone. Walter, the man who'd taken the place of the creature that had been sitting next to me. The man who'd seemed so human, so real. They were eating him, and it was my fault. If I'd stayed in my seat, it would have been me. The rules had saved me, but at what cost? The feeding frenzy lasted maybe 5 minutes. When the passengers finally dispersed, returning to their seats, the area around row 14 was spotless. No blood, no remains. No evidence that anything had happened. It was as if Walter had never existed. I felt sick, dizzy. The attendants in the galley were watching me now, their faces expressionless. "You knew," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You knew what would happen." "We know many things," Kenji said, "but knowledge without action is meaningless. You acted. You followed the rules. That's all that matters." "What was he?" I asked. The man sitting next to me, Walter, the other attendant, an older woman with gray hair, smiled. "He was a choice, a sacrifice. Every seat needs a body. If you leave your seat during the fourth hour, something must take your place. Walter took your place, and now he's served his purpose. He was real," I said, anger replacing fear. "He was a person." "Was he?" Kenji tilted her head. "Or was he just what you needed him to be? A convenient replacement, a placeholder. We create what we need in the moment, and then we consume it. That's the nature of this flight. That's the nature of everything." I wanted to argue, to rage against the casual cruelty of it all. But what would be the point? These weren't people. They were something else, something that wore humanity like a costume. My phone showed 1:03 a.m., 44 minutes left in the fourth hour. Then Rule 8 would apply. After the fourth hour, you will need to evade the passenger. You will recognize the passenger when you see them. They will be wearing your face. The thought made my blood run cold. Something wearing my face. Something that would chase me. I needed a plan. The galley offered limited protection. It was open, visible. If something was hunting me, I'd be exposed. But where else could I go? The overhead compartments. The rule had said they were safe, but how could I possibly climb into one? They were small, cramped, meant for luggage. As if reading my thoughts, Kenji spoke. The compartments expand, she said, when you need them to. Time and space are flexible here. Surely you've realized that by now. I had realized it, though I'd been trying not to think about it. The flight was supposed to be 6 hours, but it felt like we'd been in the air for days. The cabin seemed to stretch and contract, distances changing based on some logic I couldn't comprehend. How do I survive the rest of the flight? I asked. Kenji shrugged. Follow the rules. That's all anyone can do. The rules exist for a reason. They're the only thing keeping you tethered to yourself. And if I fail, then you land with everyone else. You walk off the plane. You go home. But it won't be you anymore. You'll be one of us, wearing your skin, living your life, and the real you will be trapped inside, screaming forever. The same warning from the rules. Eternal imprisonment in my own body. I couldn't let that happen. I checked my phone. 1:18 a.m. 29 minutes left. I noticed something strange. Other passengers had started leaving their seats. Not all at once, but gradually. One here, two there. They walked to the bathrooms, stood in the aisles, gathered in small groups. They were moving, restless, like animals before a storm. The fourth hour, the gray-haired attendant said. It makes everyone nervous, even us. The transition is always difficult. Transition to what? To the final stage. The hunt, the choosing, the becoming. She smiled, and for a moment, her face flickered, showing something underneath. Something with too many eyes and mouths where mouths shouldn't be. I looked away quickly. My phone showed 1:29 a.m., 18 minutes left. The cabin lights flickered. Once, twice, then they stabilized, but the color was different. Less blue, more purple. Ultraviolet almost. In that strange light, I could see things I hadn't noticed before. Writing on the walls, symbols carved into every surface, handprints on the ceiling, hundreds of them, overlapping, and faces. Faces pressed against the windows from outside, their features distorted, mouths open in silent screams. Don't look too closely, Kenji warned. That light shows the truth. Most people can't handle the truth. I focused on my phone instead. 1:35 a.m., 12 minutes left. The passengers were moving more frantically now. They weren't pretending anymore. They climbed over seats, crawled on the ceiling, moved in ways that defied physics. Their bodies bent and twisted, bones cracking and reforming. And they were all looking at me. All of them. Every single passenger and crew member was fixated on my position in the galley. They knew what was coming. They were anticipating it. One of them, a businessman in a gray suit, walked toward the galley. His gait was wrong, jerky, like he was being puppeteered. Soon, he said as he passed. Very soon now. We're all so excited. It's been 3 flights since we had a runner. Most people just give up. But you're different. You're going to run. You're going to try. That makes it fun. He continued to the bathroom and went inside. I heard retching sounds, but also laughter. Manic, delighted laughter. My phone showed 1:42 a.m., 5 minutes left. I could feel the change coming. The air pressure was building, making my ears pop. The temperature was dropping rapidly. I could see my breath misting in front of my face. The attendants in the galley had stopped pretending to work. They stood perfectly still, watching me with anticipation. Get ready, Kenji said. When the fourth hour ends, run. Don't stop. Don't look back. Find the compartment. Hide. Wait for the landing announcement. How will I know which compartment? You'll know. Your instincts will guide you. The part of you that still remembers what you were before you became this will remember. Before I became this? What did that mean? I didn't have time to ask. My phone showed 1:46 a.m., 1 minute left. The cabin went completely silent. Every sound ceased. The engine noise, the air circulation, everything. In that silence, I could hear my own heartbeat, thundering in my ears. 1:47 a.m. The fourth hour was over, and then I heard it. My own voice, coming from somewhere in the cabin. Where are you? I know you're here. I can smell you. I can taste your fear. I looked through the galley curtain and saw it. Myself, walking down the aisle, looking exactly like me. Same clothes, same hair, same everything. But the movements were off. Too smooth, too precise. And the eyes. When the light caught them, they reflected like an animal's eyes, glowing with an internal fire. There you are, it said, those glowing eyes locking onto mine. I've been waiting for you. We're going to have so much fun. It smiled with my face, and I ran. I burst out of the galley and sprinted toward the front of the plane, my feet pounding against the carpet. Behind me, I heard laughter. My own laughter, echoed and distorted. The other passengers reached for me as I ran past, their hands grabbing at my clothes, my hair. I dodged and weaved. my body moving on pure adrenaline. An overhead compartment ahead of me suddenly popped open. Without thinking, I leaped up and grabbed the edge, pulling myself inside. The space expanded as Kenji had promised, growing large enough to accommodate my body. I pulled the door closed behind me and held my breath. The compartment was dark and cramped, filled with luggage and personal items, but it felt safe, protected. I could hear footsteps in the aisle below, my doppelganger, searching. Come out, wherever you are," it sang in my voice. "You can't hide forever. Eventually you'll get tired, you'll make a mistake, and I'll be waiting." The footsteps paused right below my compartment. "I know you're close. I can feel you. We're connected, you and I. Two sides of the same coin. When you become me, you'll understand. You'll see how much better it is on this side. No fear, no pain, no doubt. Just existence. Pure, eternal existence." The footsteps moved on. I waited, counting seconds in my head. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The cabin below had returned to its eerie quiet. I risked opening the compartment door a crack and peered out. The passengers had returned to their seats. Everything looked normal again, but I knew better. I knew what lurked beneath that false normalcy. My phone showed 2:03 a.m. I'd survived past the 4th hour. Now I just needed to wait for the landing announcement. How much longer? An hour? 2? The original flight time was supposed to be 6 hours total. We'd departed at 9:47 p.m., which meant landing at approximately 3:47 a.m. I had less than 2 hours left. I could do this. I could survive. But staying in the overhead compartment for 2 hours seemed impossible. My legs were already cramping. My back ached, and the air was thin, making it hard to breathe. I needed to stay alert, stay ready. The moment I heard the landing announcement, I'd need to move fast. Get to the emergency exit. Open the door. Jump into the void. The instructions seemed insane. But after everything I'd experienced, I believed them. This wasn't a normal flight. Normal rules didn't apply. Time passed slowly. I tried to track it on my phone, but the display kept glitching, showing impossible times. 2:47 a.m., then 1:33 a.m., then 4:12 a.m., then back to 2:47 a.m. Eventually, I gave up and just waited. I heard movement below occasionally. Passengers walking to the bathroom. Flight attendants pushing carts. Normal sounds. But I knew they were waiting. Waiting for me to emerge. Waiting for their chance. My muscles screamed in protest. I shifted position carefully, trying not to make noise. Something in the compartment jabbed into my ribs. A suitcase corner. I was about to move it when I noticed something written on the suitcase, scratched into the hard shell with something sharp. A message. I survived 6 flights. You can too. Trust the rules. Trust yourself. When you jump, don't close your eyes. You need to see the light. Follow the light home. David, October 2024. David, someone who'd been through this before. Someone who'd survived not just 1 flight, but 6. That meant escape was possible. I could make it. The message gave me hope, but also raised questions. 6 flights? Did that mean once you got on this plane, you were trapped in some kind of loop? Would I have to keep flying? Keep surviving? Until eventually I failed? The intercom suddenly crackled to life, making me jump. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reynolds." His voice sounded exhausted, defeated. "We're beginning our descent into Seattle. We should be on the ground in approximately 15 minutes. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." This was it. The landing announcement. Time to move. I pushed open the overhead compartment door and dropped down into the aisle. Every passenger's head swiveled toward me in perfect unison. Their faces were blank, emotionless, but their eyes blazed with hunger. I ran toward the emergency exit over the wing, door 3L, according to the rules. Other passengers stood up, blocking the aisle. I pushed through them, their hands grabbing at me, cold and strong. Someone seized my jacket. I shrugged out of it and kept running. Another grabbed my arm. I yanked free, feeling nails rake across my skin. The emergency exit was just ahead, but standing in front of it was my doppelganger. "Going somewhere?" it asked with my voice. My face twisted into a cruel smile. I didn't slow down. I charged straight at it. At the last second, I dropped and slid across the floor, passing between its legs. I popped up behind it and reached for the emergency exit handle. The doppelganger spun around impossibly fast and grabbed my wrist. Its grip was like iron. "You're not leaving," it hissed. "You're mine. You've always been mine. Every version of you across every reality. I've claimed them all, and now I'm claiming you." I brought my knee up hard into its stomach. It didn't flinch, didn't even seem to feel it, but the surprise of the attack made it loosen its grip slightly. I twisted free and yanked the emergency exit handle. An alarm blared. Warning lights flashed. The door swung open, and instead of the night sky or the ground rushing up, there was only void. Pure, absolute blackness. No stars, no light, nothing. "Jump!" Captain Reynolds' voice came over the intercom. "Jump now! Don't hesitate!" My doppelganger lunged at me. I jumped. The void swallowed me instantly. No sensation of falling, no wind, no sound, just darkness, pressing in from all sides. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't exist. Then I saw it, a pinpoint of light in the distance. David's message. "Follow the light home." I swam toward it, though I had no body to swim with. The light grew larger, brighter, until it was blinding, and then I was through. I gasped, sucking in air, my lungs burning. I was lying on cold concrete, airport terminal floor. People were walking past, wheeling luggage, talking on phones. Normal people, living normal lives. I looked up at the departures board. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. 6:23 a.m. I'd made it. I'd survived. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on completing Flight 237. Your next flight is in 3 days. Gate C12. You cannot refuse. You cannot run. See you soon. Management. I stared at the message, my blood turning to ice. 6 flights, David's message had said. I'd only completed 1. 5 more to go. 5 more nights of horror. 5 more chances to fail. And if I succeeded, what then? Freedom? Or something worse? I didn't know. But as I stood up and walked through the airport, I felt them watching. The other passengers from Flight 237, they were everywhere. Working security, serving coffee, cleaning floors, all wearing human faces, all waiting. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.